What's up, everyone? Happy Friday as usual. Appreciate y'all popping in, being right on time. Um, Let me swing it over to we'll start it with Bobby this week to say hello and kick us off, and we'll throw it around the horn from there, and then we'll get started. We got an exciting topic this week.
Hey everyone, how are you all doing? It's nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us for this you heard. We hope to progress the conversations about the latest Medium post and discuss that more in detail today.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Thanks for joining. Good to see everyone. Looking forward to week 18, guys.
Hey guys, Wally. Happy Friday.
Hey guys, it's A. Nice to see you all again. Hope you enjoy this version of You Heard.
Alrighty. Thank you for that, everyone. Like Bobby kind of mentioned, want to take a chance to summarize the major takeaways from the recent Medium article that Bobby put together, and want to highlight some of the key themes from the ongoing forum discussion. And just wanted to thank you all for the great participation we had in that forum discussion. And then from there, just kind of fielding your questions and feedback, and trying to inform the launch strategy sort of with that in mind from there. So we'll kick it off with some of the main takeaways from the Medium article. So we'll start it with, kind of as discussed last week, and you heard the yAxis team had a prior relationship with QuantStamp that had allowed yAxis basically to bypass the audit queue on previous launches, and that was sort of the assumption that the V3 launch would proceed similarly. However, just changing circumstances with the explosive demand for audits basically made this no longer the case. Obviously you have DeFi projects popping up all over, and that has really generated a ton of demand, especially given all the recent exploits and other things going on. So it's created a ton of demand for audits, and against kind of a fixed talent pool that's able to actually audit. So you now have a massive queue building up sort of across the board, and unfortunately, yAxis is was forced to kind of sit in the queue, where previously that had not been the relationship in the case there. Recently, like I mentioned, you've had this explosion of DeFi projects and exploits, and that's really created a ton of demand growth for reputable audits. The top firms, as Bobby kind of called out in the article, Sigma Prime and Trail of Bits are 6 to 9 month or more or more waits right now. You just have this massive demand growth, and like I mentioned, the kind of lack of Solidity experts with deep knowledge. It's still a relatively new discipline, as we kind of discussed in the origin story episode way back in, I think that was week 5 maybe. And so that's kind of why yAxis is so lucky to have TNC, who's an OG Solidity expert in that sense. Even though oh, pop in, Bobby.
Sorry, I was just going to add there that, yeah, I got confirmation from QuantStamp yesterday, actually, that they are booked out for the rest of the year. So there's no new slots with them until next year.
Yeah, these are the times. It's a crazy time. So even though TNC is like an OG Solidity professional, and security is his expertise, there's obviously still value in the audit process and helping to spot things, and just having another set of eyes, and also helping to create user trust. That's a big component of audits as well. And as Bobby mentioned in the article, got the high cheat audit is scheduled for September 28th. And that timeline was only possible due to the prior relationship that yAxis had with them. So that's just the nature of the beast right now, and sort of unexpected given the prior relationship with QuantStamp. But that's the field that we're kind of playing on right now, and and got to take that and look to how to maximize value for the project with that, given that set of conditions. So that kind of moves us into some other things, such as the guarded launch idea with the peer review. So we'll walk through some of the key components of that real quick, and then pop right into the forum discussion. So the peer review component is obviously engaging. You're engaging white hats and other kind of freelance security experts to review the code. Right now, we have the ImmuneFi bug bounty that's ongoing, engaging white hats through that. Also looking to go with the community sourced kind of a community source sort of audit strategy. It's basically code 432 and 4 has a community of white hats that are incentivized to find issues, and you actually receive like a report output similar to an audit type report. And they're only paid if they find things, so it's a good incentive for them to actually find things, unlike an audit where they get paid whether they find something or not. So basically, we had kind of been in touch with the 88 MPH team, and they mentioned they had a great experience with code 3, 2, and 4, and they actually found things through that process even after they had already engaged in a formal audit with PeckShield. So an additional level of diligence there. So obviously a valuable thing, and Yield and Maple Finance had also used that process. And then in addition, yAxis does also have the War Room component, the crisis hotline through ImmuneFi as well, as something that yAxis can kind of lean on during a guarded launch and even thereafter. And sort of kind of as I hinted at there, there's a bit of a mismatch of incentives and a lot of and some issues with kind of either approach, whether that be the peer review or the audits. So the audit firms are in super high demand, as I mentioned, and they're not responsible for any exploits, and they're not responsible for finding any issues. They're basically just a review, and they're getting paid for that review, and they're not required to find any issues in that. The only thing kind of holding them is the reputation of their firm. Bug bounties, they're basically, the white hats are they're only paid if they find issues. So they might opt to maybe review more flawed code, where it's easier to find issues. And it's also often more lucrative to kind of exploit the issues themselves rather than accepting the bounty. So that's kind of the issues on both sides there. And then the combination, so with the combination of both definitely helps, kind of coming at it from either side. You kind of just got to do the best that you can to mitigate it, but the key is really starting from a good starting point, and that's where yAxis is lucky to have TNC as a security expert. It's starting from a good place with the additional ImmuneFi efforts taken to as an additional layer of security in an ongoing sense. So from there, kind of just open to community feedback on whether to wait for the complete audit for a launch or do a guarded launch with the bug bounties and War Room and maybe some peer review as some earlier mechanisms kind of in place. And that sort of led to the forum discussion. Bobby, did I miss anything there?
I was just going to say, I think that generally the code base is a lot stronger for V3 than it was for V2. When we kind of took over the project in January time, we essentially inherited a lot of code. We essentially inherited the product, and TNC kind of polished that up a little bit for V2 and made the necessary changes. Whereas V3 is essentially a complete rewrite. So that's resulting in a lot higher standard of code across the board. So including documentation and stuff like this, and access control. So it's overall a lot higher quality standard this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. So yeah, just wanted to kind of highlight some of the key community points made in forum, and again, appreciate all of the comments that have gone in there and everyone taking the time to leave their thoughts. So I'm going to give more or less a summary of all of the comments there rather than kind of reading them one by one. So give a summary of kind of people's preferences and then also some major ideas. So 11 out of 13 community members indicated that commented as of a little earlier today. 11 out of 13 community members indicated support for a guarded launch prior to the audit. 2 of these 11 specifically stated preference for starting the guarded launch today before a code 3, 2, and 4 peer review. So the vast majority indicating support for a guarded launch, and then within that, a good majority also indicating preference for waiting for a peer review process before initiating the guarded launch. 2 out of 13 indicated preference for the peer review and audit before launching. Someone citing reputational risk. And 3 out of 13 wanted to make sure that the drop, specifically mentioned that they wanted to make sure that the drop happened this month, the Great Harvest Merkle drop. And 1 out of 13 mentioned that they didn't care if the Great Harvest Merkle drop had to wait until after the product launch. And then some other ideas that were mentioned are adjusting the performance fee lower at the start of the guarded launch, and which I thought that was an interesting idea and a good idea. Another community member mentioned incentivizing early users, which is kind of along the same line as above. Like if you're going to reduce the performance fee, then you're essentially incentivizing the early users that are willing to participate in the garden launch. Another community member mentioned and sort of reinforced the idea that time is of the essence with innovation in the DeFi space. That the competing space, the competition is iterating and innovating quickly. So getting a launch out and as soon as possible is obviously preferred. And then the other thing to consider on the other side of that is another community member really voiced that you only get one reputation, and guarded or not, an issue is still an issue. And then also DPK kind of popped in and reminded us all that audits don't guarantee really anything with the Rect HQ kind of leaderboard of exploits and whether those projects were kind of audited or not. And a lot of the largest exploits have been audited. So that's just the unfortunate nature of that process. And you can only take the amount of steps that you can take and do the diligence that you can. But inevitably, the audit process isn't perfect, and it's really a lot on where you start from. And like Bobby mentioned, we're going to be starting from a really good place. So, my opinion personally, which sort of aligns with what a lot of the community thought, is a guarded launch post a code 3, 2, and 4 review, trying to schedule that as soon as possible, and then a full launch post audit. And then I also like that idea of the lower performance fee in the guarded launch early on. So, Bobby, did you want to provide any more, or anybody else, AE, Wally, Mr. Mercer, do you want to provide any more comments there before we kind of moved on to some of the questions?
I'll wait for the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, as for me, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think it's a good idea to at least have the code arena review and then do the guarded launch. But if there are no issues after a few weeks or even a month and a half, and we still haven't gotten the audit, then yeah, we can also think about extending the TVL cap, for example. So we don't necessarily have to wait for the audit to do the complete launch in that case.
One aspect of it that I do like is that if we do a guarded launch with quite a low TVL, it at least kind of gives our own users or our own token holders a chance to kind of deposit or use those vaults if they want to, at their choice, of course, at their risk. But it's nice to kind of give that opportunity to people as a way of giving back to them.
Yeah, good stuff. Alrighty, so with that, we'll roll into some of the questions that were asked in advance, and then also hit the questions that were asked live. And as always, feel free to toss in any live questions that come to mind. Alrighty, so the TISC asked a pretty good question about how are basically auditing institutions, white hats, and other auditors actually vetted. So how do you determine who's good? And so kind of along the lines of the discussion that we had earlier, where it's like white hats, uh, they only are incentivized to find issues, and then auditors aren't held liable for finding anything or for missing any vulnerabilities. Um, and so basically, the TIS wants to know kind of how are auditors chosen, how are they vetted, etc. So basically, one of the best ways to vet an auditor is or a kind of a freelance security expert is kind of via their track record and also through our own network and connections. Reaching out to others and determining has this individual or this group had experience finding vulnerabilities, what is the quality of their previous reporting and findings, have major issues gotten through them. You can ask other projects about their experiences, like we did with kind of 88 mph about code 432 and 4, basically just saying, how was your experience there, and was it worth it? And they had mentioned that that process was still really valuable even after the PEC Shield audit that they'd gone through. So that's really good to hear. And as we kind of discussed before, and sort of as you suggest, the TISC, it's definitely a tough situation. You can try to take all the measures you can, but realistically, like we mentioned, the best thing you can do is starting from a good place, which is what yAxis is doing with TNC's expertise. And then with the weekly food question, the TIS also asked, what kind of food store, stand, or truck would you launch when you retire from yAxis? And personally, I would say a taco truck because I just feel like that's a staple and be pretty badass to be cranking out some tacos at 2 a.m. But anybody else have thoughts there around the horn?
Oh, well, I'll just go with mine. I've been thinking about this. I've actually been thinking about this for quite some time. I would do like a custom froyo on wheels kind of a thing. Like they have these things where you can do like they'll make the ice cream right on the spot, but do it for froyo and then put it on wheels. That's mine. Nope, please don't steal my idea.
Yeah, my local thing would be suggestion here in Brazil is to have an ice cream buffet. So ice cream buffets are a huge thing here. There's so many of them all over the place. So I guess that would be a pretty popular concept to bring to other parts of the world too.
I
There we
think
go. Going big with the desserts. What's up, Wally?
I was gonna say, I think for me, anything dessert related, that's me also.
We got a trend.
Brutal, brutal. We're all loading up on the desserts here. The y-axis team not too healthy. Gotta get in the gym. Gotta get on the grind. I thought you were a rice bowl and chicken guy, Wally. What happened?
I am honestly. So I've not had any dessert for about 17 months or 18 months. So that's what I'm saying. That's one day.
Oh, you poor soul. Alrighty. So kind of move on to the next question. I am that also kind of asked slash mentioned this on the forum, is kind of a multi-stage approach where stage one would be launching ASAP unaudited with a low TVL cap, and then stage two is increasing the cap after a code 432 and 4 white hat kind of review, and then stage three would be uncapped after the official audit. And then also mentioning lowering the performance fee in the early stages and then back up to sort of the normal performance fee post audit. And so maybe not launching ASAP based on kind of how it seems like the team feels, the champs feel, and then most of the community, the vast majority of the community, seem to want to wait for some peer review before kind of going with the launch. But I generally agree with the approach and generally agree with the guarded kind of staged idea. and think that adjusting the performance fee down to incentivize early users is definitely a great idea. So agreed there. RJR asked about auto compounding, and we've discussed this a few times on yAxis and a few times in the Discord. Basically, with the gauges model, you kind of need to preserve user autonomy. Anytime you compound and stake yAxis in the gauges, you'll be able to choose a lock time. Curve has this model, and they don't auto compound, obviously, because it's just inherent to the model. You can't force users to lock or pick a lock time for users. And convex is the same and not auto compounding, and both have massive TVL. So I don't think that's essential to the project. Obviously, it's a feature that we'd all like to see. But kind of per last week's discussion, gauges have been extremely successful in driving value to the project and value to the entire protocol as a whole, and they help better align incentives and help us maximize the value from our emissions phase. And that's really the goal, is maximizing the value for the project. And obviously there are going to be trade-offs along the way in that, but it's just sort of the approach. And like I said, we've kind of talked about that a few times now. I am that also asked another couple of good questions about, do we have enough strategies to be ready for a launch for all vaults? Do we have a roadmap for additional strategies? Do strategies need audits? So we have a commitment from a reputable developer who has done work for yAxis before to basically write strategies that farm convex finance. Those should be completed very shortly. They're pretty much most of the way across the finish line. The tentative kind of roadmap for strategies on that would likely be kind of launched with just base strategies to ensure as little change as possible, given that V3 is already a huge change from V2. And then all goes well there, kind of, a short time period, all goes well, then rolling out the convex strats from there. And audits are generally for major project changes, such as like new product releases or something like that.
I'll just add on there that one of the unique things about yAxis is that we have a base strategy, which means that all of the strategies that plug into our base layer, they conform to the same security aspects, so they all have to adopt the same standards, and that does go through the audit system, which means that maybe additional strategies that come later, it's not so important that they're fully audited out by someone else, because they already will have had to have gone through the same process essentially. So that's one big plus for us.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for that, Bobby. And then with that, I will move to some of the questions that were asked live. So the TISC asked, are there any examples of guarded launch you've seen used before? And then if so, how do they fare during and afterward? For example, Yearn did it with their link vault, actually. Their strategies have sort of been earning low yields, so I think they haven't probably seen as much TVL from that as they might have hoped, but it's still a decent amount of TVL, even especially despite the yield being offered. And that started with a very, very, very low cap, and it increased over time and worked effectively. So I've seen a few others across the space. I think MStable did one not too long ago. So it definitely is a thing across the industry, and seems to ramp up fine afterwards. I am that asked, when can code for 2, 3, and 4 do the audit? Basically, I think they indicated their earliest availability was the first week of September. Now that we're kind of a few days from when we heard that, so it might be slightly after that now, but let's say conservatively mid-September. But it's a shorter turnaround than it would be for a full audit. Misam asked, I heard Curve dropped their emissions down recently. Does that affect us? Yeah, it would a little bit on the convex strategy. The convex strategies would earn a little bit lower yield as a result of that, but also the price of CRV has gone up a good amount, as has everything across the market. So yeah, you also have to
Convex
think
as,
about
as
that as
well.
well. Yeah, exactly. So the thing about convex is you're getting the boosted CRV and you're getting CVX on top of that as well. So both of those components kind of combine. Both of those tokens have sort of increased in value as of late. So you sort of have that in addition to kind of the base yield on top of that. So and the base yield does go up with as market conditions improve and activity improves and there's more speculation in the market, et cetera. So the base yield kind of comes up. So basically across the board, even though Curve dropped their emissions, you're kind of still seeing similar yields as you would have seen, a month or two ago. I am that is, will the base strategies generate competitive yields? Basically the point of the base strategies is just something to launch at launch with basically as little change as possible to ensure security and then adding in the strategies from there. So the goal in the actual product is to include convex strategies and then add further strategies from there, like farming Badger and farming other components. But the convex strats are the things that are most ready. So it'll just be a short amount of time in between, and that's kind of why the guarded launch actually helps, because you have that little bit of time period where you can test things out and then see and kind of add in the convex strats from there. Sakamono asked about the Great Harvest Merkle. So right now the goal with that, and internally it's on track to happen still before the end of August. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions, or Bobby, if I kind of missed anything there.
No, it's good, man. I'm just like to say that everyone's very welcome to keep on contributing to either the forum discussion or to DM us or to speak in the Discord or wherever, so we can come to a decision. I think everyone's pretty much on the same page. Like everyone's quite sensible minded going into it. So I don't think it'll be too contentious, the decision going forward. So thanks very much to everyone that's already engaged so far in that discussion.
Awesome. Alrighty, well, with that, I think we'll leave it here for the week, and then right on time. And like Bobby mentioned, just great job to everyone in the community for really showing out on the forum. And it seems like we have some pretty good consensus and some pretty solid agreement across the board. So that's always nice to see. With that, we'll see y'all next week, and hope you enjoy your weekends.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Speak soon.
See everyone, guys. Have a nice weekend.